All right, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all for coming down on this very special Sunday afternoon. We're live from Books and Books in Coral Gables, Florida, so a note to our internet audience watching at home. If at any time during the presentation you'd like to purchase a copy of today's book, you can just call the number on your screen. We'll take care of that for you. We will get it signed and we will have it shipped to wherever you are in the United States free of charge. Well, this afternoon, Books and Books is very pleased to welcome Mr. Marc William Pulver, presenting his new book, Living Life with Autism, The World Through My Eyes. And here to introduce Mr. Pulver, please welcome to the microphone, Mr. Robert Shostak.
It's a real pleasure. Can you hear me? Yeah. It's a real pleasure to be here this afternoon and to see this lovely group together and here to hear a story that is truly amazing. I wanted to thank Mitch Kaplan, first of all, for making this, this event possible. Without him, I don't think we would have ever gotten started. You're probably wondering why I'm here speaking to you right now, and I think I'll be able to solve that problem for you very shortly. My role this afternoon is to introduce Marc and provide you with a story behind the story of how this book was born. Autism, as you probably know, is the fastest growing developmental disability in our country today, and Marc was able to write a book about his experience with autism. I've known Marc his entire life. His mother and I are first cousins. In 1971, I moved here to Miami with my family and lived in Miami and knew Marc for that entire time of his life. Our two families soon shared special occasions at the Orange Bowl, fishing in Biscayne Bay, and I grew up to know Marc very well, and we discovered in each other something that that just cemented us together. Almost 3 years ago, at a family birthday celebration, Marc pulled me aside for a little private conversation, which he frequently did. And he wanted me to know that he was going to write a book. Well, over the years, Marc has shared with me numerous schemes that he wished to attempt, and they were mostly unfulfilled dreams. So I was entirely not surprised by this new revelation, and I asked Marc, what kind of a book do you want to write? And he replied, the story of my life. Will you help me with it? Well, I knew Marc was capable of doing a lot of things. He could swim well, he played a great tennis game, he could drive a car, he could do all kinds of things, and he had a memory that you could not compare. He can remember anything, and he has. The amount of knowledge in his head probably would fill a room. But I couldn't recall his ever writing a single word, and I was certain that he did not have the basic writing tools needed, nor the ability to stay on task, which is an important requirement for a serious writer. I just knew that. And I was standing there and somewhat dumbfounded that he had asked me to write a book about his life. However, I ignored all of the thoughts that I had racing through my mind, and I told Marc that I'd be happy to help him. he looked at me with a frown, and he said, Bob, how do I get this started? And I says, oh boy, I'm in trouble now. I suppressed the long swallow and said, just start by telling what you remember from the very first time you can remember what happened to you during your life. And he nodded knowingly, put his arm around my shoulder, and we walked back into the party that we were attending. What I didn't know at the time was that Marc's brother Jeff had taught him how to use email. 2 days later, I received a 2-page email that was to become the beginning of Marc's biography. Although the writing ignored all the rules of grammar, and spelling was in many instances phonetic, what Marc had produced was readable. Shortly after the email, I received a telephone call from him in which Marc was in a state of panic. He says, I'm running dry, he says. I can't think of anything more to say, but there's not enough here for a book. What do I do next? I said, well, I'm still in trouble. I'm still in big trouble. For some unknown reason, I felt that Marc very likely did have a book in him, but he'd need a lot of help digging it out. I decided at that point that the best way to proceed was through a prompting process. And so each time Marc ran dry, I simply wrote an email asking him to answer questions about his life that would challenge him to recall and write down his answers. Well, Marc responded eagerly to this approach, and to my amazement, in 3 months, ladies and gentlemen, 3 months, he was able to produce enough material. Question, response, question, response, email, 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 email. Enough material for a 275-page printed book. I decided at the time that instead of heavily editing his work and making it sound like the polished work of an experienced writer, to simply make it readable by keeping the story chronologically acceptable and throwing in a period here and there, so that when you read Living Life with Autism, The World Through My Eyes, you are reading Marc's own words. And I truly think this is amazing. It's a unique experience. The style is at once innocent and at times hilarious. So ladies and gentlemen, here's the guy we want to really hear, Marc Pulver.
Thank you, each. Is the mic on? Yes, it is. Okay. I want to thank each and every one of you for showing up to support me. It's a pleasure to see each and every one of you, and I am honored. Okay. Now, everybody has a story to tell, and everybody has a purpose in life. Some of you were meant to be doctors. Some of you were meant to be lawyers, technicians, gas attendants, and so on. But everybody has a certain purpose, and I am going to show you mine right now. This book, Living Life with Autism, The World Through My Eyes. The first thing I'm going to do now is read the dedication to my father. I want to dedicate this book to Gerald Earl Pulver. Earl Pulver, sorry. This is my father, the one who I cherish and love, the father that I cannot put into words why he is the greatest dad of all time. I really miss you, and I am dedicating this book in your honor. I love you, dear old dad. Okay, I'm going to be going down to the different chapters of my book. The first chapter is The Blue Baby Arrives. My parents had 3 sons. I'm going to be the 3rd son. 1958, March 16th, I come into this world, and everybody is happy and thrilled and just drooling over me and just holding me. And no, so I'm in the hospital a few days. I don't know how many. I know my memory is good, but it's not that good. 10 days. Thank you, Mother Dearest, in the back row. So I'm an infant, and then all of a sudden, 1 week, a month goes by, and no big deal. But as it turns out, I was not progressing at the same rate of speed that my brothers were, and then my parents, especially my mother, because she was with me 24/7 on a day-to-day basis, doing what mothers do with newborns, feeding him and cuddling him and caressing him and just loving him to death, not to let alone everything else. So I would say maybe within 6 months to a year, my mother's taken me to the pediatrician and asking the doctors why my son, a 3rd son, is behind the rest of her 2 sons. So she said, just give it just a little bit of time because everybody progresses at a different rate. So it's just like wait and see what happens in the next few months. And so Mom brought me back to the pediatrician, the same thing. So maybe 3 months went by, 6 months went by, a year went by, 2 months went by. So my mother tried to take me to some different doctors locally, but to no avail. Now, in 1968, I'm taken to the best doctors in the universe, supposedly, in 1968, called Johns Hopkins University, or Johns Hopkins Hospital. They did a lot of battery of tests there. I was there maybe 2 or 3 days. They did a lot of different things and testing, and it was decided that I was going to be a vegetable in the rest of my life, and I was going to spend the rest of my life in just a cell being a vegetable. That didn't sit right with my parents, especially with my mother, and her comment was to the doctors, you can do what you want with your son, but you're not going to do that with my son. So my mother went back to the drawing board with the very, very little technology that was known in 1968. There were no internet, there was no iPods, there was no cell phones. It was like either buying a book or going into the library and doing research or talking to people and doctors and finding out where can I take my son to get him the help that he needs. I'm not going to give up until, as Don Shula said, until I get the job done, if any of you are a Dolphin fan. So Mother Dearest back there found a place up in Philadelphia called the Institute of the Achievement for Human Potential in Philadelphia. I was there, I believe, for 2 to 3 weeks at a time, you know, just getting help there and getting tested. So they did a lot of testing on me, and they were able to implement a program that would help me. So I would be doing a battery of exercising, creeping and crawling, eye exercise, motor skills, breathing into a mask, and I was only on limited fluids 24 hours a day because the blood needed the minerals, and by having the fluid more than enough the fluids, it would dilute the minerals that the blood needed to go throughout my body, so it could do its job. So now I'm going to go to, in the meantime, I'll get back to that, fears, fascinations, and memories. One of the things that I was told, and don't quote me on this, I'm not a doctor, that a lot of people with ASD and autism and Asperger's and all these related diseases have excellent memories. I can remember songs from back to the late 50s till now, and mostly all the events that happened in my life. That is why I'm standing here in front of you telling you little inscripts about my book, because I have this fabulous memory. So a couple of my fears were that I remember distinctly. I was afraid of animals, and I was also afraid of loud noises and just being by myself or with even people I really didn't know and feel comfortable with. Now, my fascinations were with running up and down stairs, going on boats, and being in an elevator. I used to think of an elevator as a magical car. When you go into an elevator, you're on one floor, and it's just like the door closes and it opens up a few seconds later. Presto, you're in a different place. I used to think of myself as Cinderella when I used to go in an elevator. Okay, we're going on to chapter 3 now, school days. School days was very, very rough. I mean, going to school on the bus the first day away from mommy dearest, I was cried like a baby. I was petrified of being away from my mother. I did not want to go to school. I was bullied. I was belittled. I couldn't do anything in school. I couldn't think. I could not do the tasks. I did not know how socially to interact with the teachers and with the other kids. I was always made fun of. When I went on the bus, I was not allowed to sit down. The bus driver would have to pull the bus over to let me sit, so I could have a place to sit. School days was not back in my elementary days, childhood was not a very fun experience for me. Going on to chapter 4, growing up was a very, very big challenge for me, because I could not interact with basically anybody. I had a housekeeper that used to lock me in my room because I couldn't, I was always being a nuisance. I didn't know how to make friends. I couldn't even speak till I was 5, so it was just like, I was just like living a voided life growing up. I just didn't understand people, my parents. It was just, growing up was extremely, extremely difficult. But growing up, there came a turning point where that inner desire kicked inside of me when my mother just wouldn't give up on me. It's just like you take a car and charge a battery of a dead car to get it going. That's something like what my mother did with me. She jumped my battery, which was my inner desire here, to want to learn and to want to grow and to be a part of society instead of part of being inside, cooped up inside 4 walls until the day that I died. So that was also why I was going to these new doctors, and I'm going to touch upon this now before I go on to chapter 5, which is going to be the tough teenage years, which some of you might enjoy. So also every 3 months, I would go back to Philadelphia for evaluations, and each time I went, I got a little bit better and a little bit better. I started to gradually pick up on things at home and also in school. I gradually learned, not at the same pace. I was still far behind everybody, where everybody else was at that age. But I gradually learned math. I gradually learned a reading, but reading took a little while longer. I mean, I never forget how excited, and my mother was excited for me when I told her that I could do math, and I could do times tables and division. I remember we went out to a place called Tyler's, and we celebrated the fact that I could actually do division and multiplication. Thank you for that. So it was about maybe 3 years getting up at 6 o'clock, doing these exercises before I go to school, eat some breakfast, do more exercises, go to school, come home, do homework, more of the exercises, then dinner, and then more exercises and motor skills, and also learning at home. For 3 years, I was like the Easter Bunny doing this. I took a licking, and I kept on ticking for like 3 years, for 3 years straight. But it paid off because I was getting close to being where I want to, but I wasn't there yet. I still had a long way to go. So I stopped going up to Philadelphia right around 1970, 1971, and this is where we're getting into the interesting years. Tough teenage years was also a little frightening, because biological things started happening to me, which was a little bit scary, which I'm not going to get into. And I met friends. I started making friends, going out. I even started, with the help of my father, I also started learning about just what females was like, and just like investigating what's on the other side of the male, is the female. And just so a lot of different things. I met friends, both male and female, went out. Just like most teenagers, I got into trouble. I got a job at this place called Sambo's, which is Denny's over here. My first check I got, I decided I wanted to buy a motor scooter. So I bought a motor scooter, and my friend helped me hook it up with a 6-volt battery. The next thing you know, I'm pulled over by a police officer, and I'm begging and pleading, and please, Jesus, don't take me to jail. This is my first motorcycle, I told him. This is my first motorcycle. So I ended up walking the motorcycle from, I believe, Douglas Road, near where my friend used to live, all the way home, and I told my parents about the good news. My father was happy. My mother, not so much. Well, that's a different story. That's a different story. I felt her wrath for like 2 weeks. And my father would say, Sybil, he's a kid. Let him enjoy himself. He is a kid. And I'm like thinking to myself, you go, Dad. So still, I would work. I went to school. I've had a part-time job going to Coral Gables High School. Now, I still had some learning difficulties, but then I decided at about the last couple of months of high school, it was decided that I really didn't do enough academics to earn myself a diploma. So I asked my guidance counselor, I said, listen, I came all this way We were very close, Mrs. Lance, and she knows my life story. And I said to her, I'm not going out here without a certificate. You tell me what I have to do to get a diploma. So for like 2 months, months straight, for like 2 hours, 3 hours a day, I was in an isolation room studying science, social studies, English, grammar, math, and science, and everything I could to try to get myself mentally up to speed so I could get myself a high school diploma, because I said to myself, Mother is the one that helped jump my battery, and I have not let the Energizer bunny run out yet. And so I just decided, by hook or by crook, I'm not walking out of the high school without a diploma in my hand. And lo and behold, I studied, and I believe the first time I took the test, I took a test so I could get passed for a high school diploma. I wound up with a B+. Wow. I wanted an A. And when I said to my parents, I'm going to get my diploma, I got a B, my parents says, well, you have an A in our heart. And so those were the tough teenage years. Now, living in the real world after high school is just like you become a man. Some people believe, some go to college, some go into the Army, the Navy, or the Marines. I went right to work. I took a couple courses in Day Junior, but I realized I was not college material, so I just went to work and just started trying to live, which I did, a normal life, but like anybody else, I made mistakes and just probably made a few more mistakes than others, but I was moving on. I was driving. I was still living with my parents and just enjoying a good, wholesome life after that, and just trying to adjust from high school into the real world working world. I've worked in restaurants most of my life, and I'm still working in restaurants. One thing that I was instilled by my dear old dad is when you go to work for somebody, you actually work. You work for somebody. Cell phones, internet, iPods, earrings, and everything else that's non-work related that does not exist. You actually went out and you actually worked for a good living, and you got paid because you did a good hard day's work. That's what I was taught, and if I ever had kids, I would pass on the torch to my kids. When you work, you're for somebody. You do it the best that you can. You do it better than anybody else can ever do, when you work for somebody. Now, traveling with mom and dad. Got a couple of stories there. My first real trip, 1988, we went to Australia. That was a beautiful trip. First class I was on first class for the first time, and I'm saying, what's this, tablecloths on an airplane? And these cups, am I dreaming? These cups are not plastic, they're actually real coffee cups. So I pinched myself, and then I squeezed the cup. I said, Dad, look at this, real coffee cup and caviar. I mean, that was something. I ate my first steak ever on the plane. I was just awed by everything. So I said to my father, Dad, I will never fly any other way but first class. Now I know why you and Mother like to go away so much. And then my mother right away squeezes my hand, whispers in my ear, do you have any idea of how much this costs? I say, no, Mom, but you know what? I'm loving it. I'm loving it. But going to Australia, I was a white-knuckle flyer also. As soon as we would hit some bumps, I'd call the steward over and ask her, I feel bumps. Is this plane all right? I want to make sure we're not going to crash. And my parents would tell me throughout the whole trip, nothing's going to happen. People do this every day for a living. Do you think people would fly if it weren't dangerous? Yeah, but what about that flight that crashed in '89? And what about that flight that took off and landed in the Botanic River? And what about that one? Then they started telling me about the statistics about how planes crash very few. Well, if you really want to be concerned about something, count how many car accidents there are in Dade County alone, especially driving on I-95 and somebody that's been drinking all life sideswipes a van. Think about that. So it's just like, but we've traveled for a month in Australia, and my father did not want to miss everything, so we would get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to get an early start because he wanted to see everything. But one morning, he looked at his clock backwards, and instead of getting up at 5, we actually got up at 3 o'clock in the morning because of the fact that he looked at the clock wrong. And what are we going to do? Where are we going to eat? So we walked around, and I watched my father blow cigar smoke for a couple hours. And then he decides he wants to rent a car. And then I see the way people drive. And one day, Dad and I went out to do our thing to the waterfalls. And he asked me, why don't you be adventurous? Why don't you take the wheel? And I said, and drive on the wrong side of the road? I don't think so, Dad. We both will not be here if I drive. We both will, because I am not going to drive on the left-hand side. But we had a blast. We saw the African tablelands. We went on the Great Barrier Reef. We had some boat rides, and it's just like. But what was also cool about it, because we went in the summer, our summer, but we were also in winter, because on the southern hemisphere, when we have summer, it's opposites there. It's summer there and winter here, and vice versa. And then but we had a great time in Australia. And then I'm going to tell you about one story when I went to Europe to meet a friend, because I used to have a friend here. He moved to Europe, so my father rented a car for me. So I get off the plane, and I'm supposed to drive from Munich to St. Gallen to meet him. Now, everybody's speaking German, but anyway, I get the car. I'm thinking I'm getting an automatic notice. I've never in my life drove a stick shift before. And I get in the car, and I'm like, it's a stick shift. So I say to the guy, ach, das ist ein stick shift here. No automatic, ein stick shift. And he looks at me and says, Auto nicht ein Auto nicht. Nixt auto. And I'm like, okay. What would my father do if he were me? No, just thinking about what he would do, I mean, he would go there and figure out how to drive the damn thing. That's what he would do. So I went there, I turn on the gas, I pull the stick shift, and the shift, and I hear and nothing's shifting. And then a guy happens to figure out I must have looked American, and then he said to me, Herr, you have to step on the clutch before you shift gears. You have to slap on the clutch before you shift gears. And I go, thank you, my head, and thank you. And so I'm given some directions on how to meet my friend in Switzerland, and I'm going down the road. I found out how to get out of the airport, and then I see a lady on the street walking, and I tell him how I say to her, Switzerland, and she goes, Schweiz, Schweiz, and she keeps moving her hand that way. And so I go, and about a mile, I see the word Schweiz, and I said, that must be Switzerland. So I keep going, and I keep going. And then all of a sudden, I run into a blizzard. There's this white stuff coming from the sky, and I'm like thinking to myself, was is that? What's that? I can't see. So I pull over to the side of the road, and apparently I wasn't over far enough. There were guys passing me yelling, Dunkov, 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 Dunkov. And I'm at the side of the road, and I'm like, I'm not going to drive in the blizzard. And so I wait a couple hours, and I'm in the car about 8 hours, and then I stop for a while, to get some coffee, and then I finally meet my friend Schmidt house in St. Gallen. Mm-hmm. So we had a really, really, really nice time there, and it's just like. It's not the scenery over there. It's just like a lot different. Scenery here is the same until you get like a few hundred miles. Then if you're up north, it changes. There, it's just like going. Switzerland is just like mountainous, like Colorado. It's cold. It's got the same terrain that it does. But as you go, maybe an hour from Switzerland to Italy, everything changes. There's water. It's not mountainous. It's a lot warmer. It's a lot tropical. And all of a sudden, the radio changed instantly from Switzerland to Italy, and so it's just so different. Everything is a learning experience. And that is concluding chapter 7, Traveling with Mom and Dear Old Dad. Now, it hit me like a ton of bricks. I knew I had difficulties and mental deficiencies growing up, but I never knew that I had autism, because I have seen a couple people with autism, and they're not like me. They're a little bit more severe. So I didn't believe it when I had autism. I says, no, this can't be possible. If I had autism, then I am going to write a book. And that's when I approached my cousin. I really want to write a book, but I need to know. I need to just help me out here. How can I write this book? Tell me what to do. Tell me what to say. I really want to do this, because he was right. I had no writing skills, and as he said, my grammar was atrocious. But here I am. I want to write a book, and so he helped me write the book. So that is how the book is now in existence. Now, parenting special skills. I wrote this book because I want to help and inspire others, and I would love to be a mentor to anybody at no charge to you. If anybody at all needs my services, please talk to me when I do sit down here taking your money for the books. Books. Now, one last thing that I want to tell all the parents. Parents, nurture your kids. Love your kids. Don't isolate them. Don't alienate them. Don't lock them in a room or out of your life. Let them know, like my mother did over here, that they're on this earth because they have purpose. They have a life. They can achieve anything you want to. All you need to do is just take your visible jumper cables and just charge their inner desire. Everybody has one. As long as we're here and our feet are grounded on this earth, we have this inner desire that we can achieve anything that we want to. I ask you to please do that and pass on this message. My book to everybody in the universe, Living Life with Autism, The World Through My Eyes. Thank you, everybody, so much for coming. And please, anybody wants to buy some books, I'll be right over here.
Folks, we also
Please
have
join
time for questions if anyone has any questions they'd like to ask.
I'm jumping
that's
ahead.
Fine, yeah.
Sorry about that. That's my job. Here.
Yeah, no,
here.
no, that's okay. I've got
Here,
them.
okay. So I just got ahead of myself. I'm sorry about that, but I'm going to be taking Q&A, question and answers. Please ask any question you like. It's never too big or never too small. Thank you.
Whoever wants to go first, go ahead.
Yes, Miss Linda Hurst. You Hurst so good. Did I tell you that?
When were you told that you were on the autism spectrum?
In 2010, when I needed to get re-diagnosed for insurance purposes.
How old were you?
Oh, I would say if I'm 56 now, 50 or 51, but please don't quote me on that.
Did it change how you do things? I mean, it didn't really change how you operate?
Well, it did, because I decided I want to keep going up. I want to keep going better. So it changed for the better, for the positive. Yes, sir, on the end there.
Yes, hi, my name is Jonathan Searle, and I am also inflicted with autism. And I have a story very similar to yours.
Okay, I'd like to hear it.
Well, where do I begin? When I was 2 years old, I had a lot of physical disabilities as well, just like you. And I was struggling, like when I was young, like when I was like 1 or 2, 3 years old, my arm was like twitching like this all the time. And so when I was 2 years old, my doctor diagnosed me with autism. And so my dad was beginning to lose hope. And so he went to the church. And so he talked to the priest, what was his, Father Russell? Yeah. He talked to Father Russell, and he was really down on himself, and he was about to give up. And so the priest gets mad, he's trying to set my father straight. My father's right here.
How do you do, sir?
And he says, tell him what he said. I don't remember.
He said to me, I just come from Miami Children's Hospital, and they told me my son had autism. I said, no, I couldn't be. Not me. This couldn't happen to me. So I went to my priest, who was a good friend of mine, and he said to me, he says, what did you name your son? I said, I named him Jonathan. I said, did you name him before he was born? I said, yeah. I said, do you know what Jonathan means? I said, no. He said, it means a gift from God. What did you name? What was his middle name? I said, his middle name is Emmanuel. Did you name him before he was born, before you knew he had autism? I said, yes, before he was born. Did you spell it with 2 M's? I said, yes, I did. He says, get out of my office, go get on your knees and raise your boy. And that was the greatest thing I ever had. That and a terrific support group. I admire it. I admire who you are.
Well, that was the kick in the ass you need, then. Definitely.
Anyways, so my dad took me to this program called the ARC, wonderful program. And so they helped me all through the way. And by the time I was almost 5 years old, I didn't mention, I was unable to speak. The doctor said I was never going to speak for the rest of my life.
Me too.
Mm-hmm. And so when I was 4, on December 7th, my dad came to pick me up. And so he asked me if I was ready to go home. And I looked at him and said, "Yes, Daddy."
You want to know the first words I spoke? After I've done going to the bathroom, I think I said, "Mom, I'm done. Can you wipe my tuchus?" And she almost had a heart attack.
It's a full sentence.
Oh, you know, my first words, those weren't my first words, but my first words was, it was in Spanish, and I can't speak any Spanish now.
Well, I would say mazel tov, but I can't say that.
All right, so I went through the rest of my life living with this condition. I had no friends until about maybe 3rd grade. Well, I had an insufficient amount of friends. I had my neighbor, Samuel, and I had my friend from school named Charlie, who I'm still in contact with today. And so, 4th grade and 5th grade were like sort of a transition into maturity. And so by the time I was in middle school, I thought I was ready to overcome the challenges of middle school. And 6th grade turned out to be the worst years of my life. I was not ready for that transition whatsoever.
Well,
I had no friends going in and going.
sometimes you may not like it or not. You're not ready for it, but boom, bada boom, it hits you and you're there. The thing is, you have to come up with a game plan to cope with it. I mean, it could either be positive or negative. I thought, what would my father do in a pressure situation? And that's what I try to do. And I've made my mistakes along the way, and so are you. That's why we're on Earth, and that's why we're human. But if you have the mindset, I can do anything. My mother didn't believe in saying, I can't. She didn't know what those words were meant. Maybe she didn't learn that when she was in school. But she never said, I can't. I don't know, I can't. But you have the same potential as I do. You're no better than me. I'm no better than you. You can be an achiever of everything. I mean, you may not be able to fly like a duck, but you can do anything that anybody can do. You want to be a doctor? You can be a doctor. You want to have a business of your own? You can do it. This is America. This is the land. This is the free and the brave. You do have a chance to do anything you want to do. I hope that this means something to you. You can achieve anything.
Anyone else have a question for Mark? This gentleman right here, go ahead.
Yeah.
I just want to let people know, I'm Jim Marks, publisher of Florida Tennis Magazine. I met Mark last spring in Key Biscayne. He played in the Cliff Drysdale Pro Celebrity Tennis Tournament with some of the top tennis players in the world. He has a very good tennis game. And he gave me a copy of his book. I read it. It was wonderful. I highly recommend it. It's entertaining and very informative. And Mark, how is your tennis game?
I don't know, because I haven't seen Djokovic since that time. I have not seen Djokovic to find out, to get any practice. Yes, Carla.
Will you be traveling with your book and speaking to other groups or going elsewhere in the United States or in Florida?
Well, that is the goal, but first I'm trying to get known locally and to do a lot more speaking engagements, but I'm hoping at some point in time I do see that. That's what I do want to do, and sometime in the future, traveling all over the states, and who knows, maybe the world. I have not even scratched the surface with this yet. I want to definitely do more of that. Thank you very much.
One last question, perhaps, right here in the second row.
Yeah.
I'm wondering what your relationship was with your two brothers. Was it like most brothers, heckle, 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 I love you, heckle, or did you have a different relationship because of your condition?
Well, honestly, one of my brothers, we don't. I know he's helped me in some ways, but we don't always see eye to eye. But my brother my oldest one, we're very, very close, and we're always in touch. We're always in touch.
I was just going to ask you if your mother, where your mother is.
My mother is this lady over here, this beautiful lady that has a New York shirt that says, "I love New York."
My name is Oscar Ramos. I work with Autism Soccer, with kids with autism. And I just want to tell you that if you realize that this book will help millions of parents to organize that they have those kids like inside the bubble, and thanks to you, you can open a lot of opportunities for a lot of parents.
Well, that's my number one goal here. Thank you for your support. That's my number one goal. Anybody else have a question? Bada boom, Madeline.
If that's your number one goal, what's your number two goal?
That's my number one goal, and my number two goal is to still do more of the same. What do you think about that? So you know what? You know what, Madeline? We're back to square one. Now, what's your next question? Yes, ma'am, on the back row.
Hi there. I have an 11-year-old with autism, and he doesn't realize there was a name attached to this condition that he has. Do you think there's a benefit to him knowing that there's a name, knowing that there's a condition, or do you think it's too constricting for him, but involving, young boys?
No, I believe he needs to be made aware, just like I was at a young age, that there is a problem, and once you address that you have a problem, then you can figure out how to move in the direction to get the help that he needs and instill that inner desire so he can learn to grow and to love everything like I have. Like I said, everybody's got a chance. You, everybody in this universe has a chance to strive and be the person that they were here to be. Hopefully that answers your question. Yes, sir.
Oh, yes. I also wanted to tell you, you said that people with Asperger's tend to have good memory.
Well, with autism.
Yeah. I have Asperger's. I still remember what my first birthday cake looked like.
Oh, can you do me a favor when you have time? Can you draw it for me and then or send it over an email? I'd like to see it.
We will.
That'd be fantastic.
At least I think it was. Maybe it was my second.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions?
I don't have a question, but I...
Oh, yeah, I'll get to you in a minute. Yes, Sue.
Yeah, what about, okay, so we recognize that we have Asperger's or autism or whatever, and we're working on it. But at the same time, you got a society that's all their values are based on appearances and looks and fitting in and being normal. And a lot of times you suffer at the hands of human society. And when you got no back support like you have, then where does a person go besides therapy at the UN card? Where does a person go to make friends, to fit in? Because it can't happen. You can only go so far. Society blocks you.
Well, let me answer that for you, Sue. Think about people have certain interests, what they like, what they don't like. Like I like tennis, I like sports, I like movies. Find some people that you have the same common ground interests in. That's what you need to do, and then Get with them. There's resources out there. There's magazines, there's books. Google where you can find people, that some clubs or some groups that you have the same interest in. That's what I would do. That's a start right there. If I were you, I hope I was direct in answering your question. Okay, yes, ma'am.
Yes, Mark, I don't have any questions, but I'm going to tell you, since I met you back in the late 70s when you were in learning disabilities with my son, who's severe autistic, and you have come a long way. Oh, I'm so proud of you.
Can I answer anybody else's questions?
Time to sell some books, maybe, if there are no more questions? Well, let me just give a reminder to our internet audience watching at home that there's still time to call the number on your screen. You can purchase a copy of your book. We'll have Mark sign it for you, and we'll ship it to wherever you are in the U.S. free of charge. I want to thank our guest introducer, Mr. Robert Shostak. We have the books for sale at the counter over there, and Mark will be signing at the little table to the left of the podium. And this has just been so terrific. Why don't we give Mark another big hand? Thank you very much. Thank you.